Yeah, well, hi, I'm Henne. He told some of the stuff already. My English is hopefully all right. It's not the best, but I try my best. So, I'm Henne Müller. Just to my story a little bit. I grew up when I was a little boy and always wanted to play drums. But I was too small. And I had to wait to get lessons for a long time till I grew a little bit to be able to play the drums. So I ended up with a classical drum teacher, and he trained me very, very well, and I played a lot of contests and whatever, and I was totally into classical music. What was a good education, I would say. When I turned about 18, 19, I was more interested in like pop music or production music. You should actually coming from hip hop and also a bit reggae stuff. And but then I ended in a studio. They did pop music productions or also pop music mixing. And finally, in this studio, some people started with electronic music. So that's how I came there, or why I'm here today, talking about electronic music mixing, or maybe also a bit electronic production. Like he said, I had an independent band called Abbey that existed like 6, 7, 8 years, I don't know. But there was always a love for electronic music and electronic influences. I was the drummer in the band, but we had a keyboarder and sampler stuff with us, and so there were some funny live shows where we ended up like playing our songs, and at the end we started jamming, and then there was a 4/4 kick drum at some point, and the keyboarder went crazy, and that was actually the point where we thought, hey, why not, let's do also like a club act, a DJ act or whatever. And this was called Abbey System. How it is, or like it is with the bands, after touring for 7, 8 years, it's like in between the people, sometimes it's a bit difficult. And we quit the band and came up with a new project called GHEIST. So that's also probably why I'm invited here today. I'm at the moment as a producer and mixing engineer at Riverside Studios Berlin, and spending actually all my life there. I did mixes recently I worked on the Fritz Kalkbrenner record, did a lot of mixes for them. I do production and mixing for GHEIST. Besides that, I did some stuff for Alle Farben, worked a lot with Tobi Neumann, and did some of the recent mixes for Panpot. Yeah, so mixing in general for me was actually, I would say it was a need to do this, because I always did production all my life, and also, like I said, for pop stuff, but money-wise, it was a need for me to start mixing, because it's so funny. At the end, producers are not getting paid anymore, or not getting paid well. So I thought, I always pay mix engineers and mastering engineers. I thought, fucking hell, at some point, maybe I can learn this. And I started training myself in mixing for, I don't know, I would say it took me, honestly, 5 years now, and I think I'm a reliable mix engineer nowadays, but it's still like it's for me, it's so nice. It's like a computer game. You never reach the final level. You always go next step, next step, next step, and this is what I like in production in general, and this is what I like in mixing. I would love maybe to get you guys later a bit involved. I asked him already, because I would love to have spend another nice 1.5 hours with you, and also maybe I can help you in some questions or like inspiring you in mixing. Is there any mixing engineer here? Yes, nice. Are you I repeat it so we have it on tape also. Are you producing and mixing or just mixing?
Yeah, I'm producing and I'm studying sound engineering in SAE.
Ah, nice, beautiful, cool. So I think that we all know if you do productions, mainly I guess you do production, you're very creative at the beginning, and then at a certain point you reach something, a point where you just think, okay, this is not it. Then you start producing the stuff again, changing sounds, doing this, which is great, but at the end, sometimes I guess we all know we're reaching a certain point where we think, oh, no, everything is shit. The whole song is not what it is, and maybe you came from the first idea, questioning yourself, and you lose your basic idea. This is the first thing I wanted to tell you today. Always save your first ideas. This is the real emotion, this is what's coming out of you. And always, I mean, it doesn't take any space on our disks nowadays. We have terabytes of always every next important step, pre-save it and put a word to it, like first inspiration, drum reprogramming or whatever, so you can always go back and copy it to new arrangements. That makes you faster and you don't lose yourself. Then, give me a second, about mixing. I think also in mixing it's about emotions. So I don't know if you get mixes of other people, but I get it a lot, and it's like one of my main things besides production. It's super, I'm just talking like general stuff and then maybe going a bit deeper in all mixing. You always have to really seriously listen to the material you're getting. Always ask the people if it's not for you, and also be honest with yourself. If you're done with production, pull down a rough mix and then start from the rough mix, because in the rough mix you are like, it's all coming from your belly. If you go technical to some stuff, you lose it already. Technical stuff, for me, it's just knowledge, and you get it over the years, also combined with some experience. But I lost for a couple of years, I would say almost 2 years, I lost the thoughts about emotions to the music. I was just like, yeah, kick fatter, this, more attack here, more bass, blah, 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 bullshit. The rough mix says everything it should say. So always stick to your own rough mix or to the rough mix of the clients. If you start a mix, I always, maybe you know from doing some commercial inputs here, you know all plugin alliance, like this AB tools, you heard about them? So this is, I guess, a tool that should have been done, should have been here already long time ago. Back in the days we did it with a console and switched AB, whatever. Very good tool, but also here it's very, very dangerous. I'm feedbacking a bit, right? It's very dangerous because in these 2 years where I lost it a bit, I always switched AB, and then you think like, okay, the heights in this other track are louder, kick drum is lower or whatever, and you make your track or the track of your client at some point fit to a reference track. But the reference track has a different emotion usually. Also talking about club music, in pop it's even worse. But you keep also tricking your ears over the time, because it's super, super tough for your ears to switch from this song to this song. It always destroys something in your brain, and it destroys your distance to your song. You end up like, A, B, blah, blah. That's bullshit. I would always say, if you start a mix, listen to the rough mix, have a coffee or tea, and then start working with the files. Usually, so I'm just talking to you from my point of view at the moment. It might be changed in half a year again, but not in a big way, I guess. So I start working with drums. I also tried at some point, you know, you're insecure and then you think, maybe it's better to start with the vocal or this or this. I think my mixing system is relayed on levels. Should I talk louder or is it fine? Cool. It's related on levels into like compressors or stuff. So I have chains I show you later. When I know that this is the kick level, I set it to there, I will end up in my mastering chain perfectly. I'm not overloading, there's no clipping, there's nothing, it's going smooth through it. So I'm starting with the drums, and the next thing also, I guess you think the same for club music, it's the bass combined with kicks and the drum in general with the groove. I also show you later some important stuff about grooves when it comes to compression. Because I'm using, in club music, I'm not using too much compression, to be honest. Pop music is way more. But I'm using compression to make grooves breathe more. So it's about attack and release times to make a groove being more straightforward or maybe a bit more laid back. This is what we all can do with compression. I never knew, but I found out. So, and then the next thing I also was one of my main points was about vibrations of instruments. I also never respected that as much as I should have. We all know like EQing in general of your kick drum or whatever, and EQing bass. I think EQing bass is always a very tricky thing for me, because there's bass all over the bass anyway, so where to start EQing? And if there's a snare drum or if there are hi-hats, it's fine, we put it out a bit louder, we see, okay, it hurts here, or maybe there are some frequencies missing. But in the bass, it's always, if it, not talking about like an electronic bass, it's more like subby, big belly bass. Now like, where to EQ, what the fuck? It's about vibrations for me, because every instrument, also if it's a hi-hat or like short decay instruments, they have their vibrations on certain tones. And with the bass drum, with the bass, I'm using, maybe you have some of the wave plugins or like sub-frequency adding plugins. So this is a good tool for me when it comes to bass to sweep like the subharmonics, and then you see at a certain point it's just fulfilling the room. And I think these frequencies are super important. I'm always using this. Is it in a bass drum or bass or in general like synths? They have like on certain points, it's not where they should be, it's where they are for me, and then in the next step to see where they need space with other instruments. But first of all, take care of an instrument and what it can do. And then if you kitzel this out, you got me, yeah? Then the playback certainly starts to feel alive. It's like, it's not boring, controlled. No one needs that. It should be like breathing, exciting, and being alive. So, can you read something of this now? It's mainly for me anyways. So I start with drum and bass. Maybe I put hands on already a little bit. So I brought you today the latest release, because it's one of the last mixes I did. It's not the typical club song with 4/4, but we are all in the Corona time at the moment, and we thought in the studio also what to do at the moment. Releasing club tracks, we can do it, we should do it, but maybe we thought there's also a solution to make tracks in a way that you also can enjoy them at home. It's not super like, you don't get it, you don't going nuts on that. In a club way, it's also an easy listening track. If you put it loud, it's nice. I'm just gonna play you the song. You might not know it or whatever. I just play a couple of of this breakbeat thing that I'm enjoying recently for, I don't know why, but I love it so much. Did so much for 4 stuff and mixed for 4 tracks, and it's, for me, it's so nice because it's breathing so cool. And as I said, I'm coming from hip hop, like that you have not. I love 4/4 tracks, but it's not easy to keep them in a home listening situation sexy. Honestly, it's like if you do 4/4 stuff, we maybe think about going modular, or you know, it's like you need a fucking hell of a good synth work on it, and very spectacular synth work to make it feel lively or nice. In this one, there's I recently also heard in a lot of new releases that people start liking chords again. And as I'm coming from classic and hip hop, this is for me. It's like I love this because it's groovy. It's just a nice way for me at the moment to get a club feeling, but also easy listening. So I took the song with me today. It might be that this computer will crash a couple of times because I'm not mixing on my laptop. Like I said, I'm in Riverside Studios, and I just got me the new Mac. Now I have a powerful big Mac, and also I'm using lots of outboard stuff that I can show you here today. I think you don't need outboard in general. But now in the times of digital mixing, I have both experiences now, and I say it's both possible, but sometimes analog stuff makes things easier for you. It's not really better, but you can reach a certain sound way quicker than in digital. What we all should know, this is next very important thing that I wanted to tell you. In digital mixing, there is a phenomenon that is adding heights. So if you mix digital, you always have to fight against high frequencies. It's if you do compression, and this, and maybe excitement, or like distortions, you end up in a very hurting, cleary mix at the end. This is what we don't want, and this is what usually does not happen if you use analog gear. But this is so expensive, we all might not have it. But there are super cool workarounds for this. I'll also show you later. So let's have a look to the track. As you can't see, it's not easy, I explain you. I have a structure. First, there is the production or layouting. I'm very quick in layouting because I think it's like I said, it's emotion and impression of a moment. So I use for a layout probably mainly 2 to 3 hours, never longer. And if I'm working on electronic stuff or working with the GHEIST boys, we take it like, we have a layout in 2-3 hours, then we close it. We don't arrange it. We maybe, you know, you have maybe 2 parts and you put it like a 1.5 minute arrangement. So you have like an idea of a break and an idea of a main part, close it, next arrangement, next idea. So you come in a flow and you don't overthink the things. Because I think also sometimes, like I said, at the beginning there's a cool idea, at the end you lose it again. After 6 hours, like, oh, coffee, this is bullshit. Be fast, be quick, and always be very, very on it. It's a bit of production, I hope it's all right for you too. If you are fast and honest, I always know, I think we all know, if you open up a synth, a software synth or analog synth, doesn't matter, you play something and you think, oh, it's all right. Bullshit, throw it away, straight up. You have to find this one synth sound or bass sound that you fucking love. That's worth it to make a song out of it, and it's worth it to listen to it for like 8 to 12 minutes. This is so important. So maybe then you have a good first impression of a chord and a good synth. You need some adds to it. Then again, like you put something to it and you think, ah, yeah, it fits. Bullshit. It has to fucking kill it. Every track needs to be relevant in electronic music production for me. Back in the days, it was a bit different. I started a lot of layering sounds and like, it's not really the synth sound, so I put another one to it, another one. You can do it. I think it's very, very tricky to reach a good point with this. So as you can see a bit, this is the whole song, honestly. I think hopefully you also, I think it sounds more than what you can see. It might be also that some things are a bit bounced or rendered together already, but I think this is actually, you don't really need more. Depends on the direction of electronic music you're going, but what do we need? We need always a groove elements, which is basically kick, snare, and hats. If you do more housey stuff, you might have some bongos or whatever, but then we have 4 tracks, and I would count like a bongo track as a percussion track. Could be also kabasa or shaker into it. So this is 4 tracks, then you have a bass. Is there any reason why we should use a second bass? For me, not really, because in a club situation, it's always, I didn't knew that back in the days because I wanted to be a spectacular producer. Bullshit, in a club you want a color, you want one vibe for about 6 minutes, because people want to dance. They don't want, like we're in the studio, they don't want to listen to your production. They want fun. So I think changing too many sounds, club music is, for me, it's not necessary. You can do it, but you don't have to. And then it's, I don't know, some kind of chord progression or lead sound. Depends, again, if you're doing techno, you might not need chords, but there are also a lot of pads or whatever. And maybe what I really like in the moment, I don't know if it's for you and your style, but I like little top melodies. So you might have a chord progression and you're just going with some little elements that are, again, worth it to be there. No bullshit. And yeah, then maybe some vocals or whatever. I see there's the second bass. No, but I show you later, it's more a synth kind of bass, like a high layered one or whatever. So this for production. Now when we're going to a mix, like I said, listen carefully to what you did or someone else did, and then start with leveling. So I wish you could see a little bit better. Of course, we start with the kick drum. Yes, please.
It was just when you said that, okay, so you come up with an idea and you arrange it really quickly, just do like a first draft.
Oh, I can hardly hear you.
Okay, so you say that you come up with an idea and then you make like a really quick like arrangement.
Yeah.
And then you like kind of get into a flow.
Yeah.
Making these like
mini arrangements, yeah.
When do you then go back to them and continue developing? Do you do like one day of like being creative and then the next day or next week?
No, this is the thing. Like, yeah, good question. I start with like one layout, 2, 3 a day, and then sometimes I have other jobs to do, like another mixing project the next day or whatever. But if we come together again with the band for this one project, might be a day after it, even better. Usually we always go like 1 or twice a week. And then you have a good distance to what you did. And I did recently, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 song layouts. The good thing is I always trick myself because I don't remember what I did. I don't know in which scale I was working. I know nothing. And you immediately don't have to fight like you're sitting too long on the track. You think something is missing and you're forcing yourself to get this one idea. If I open up 3, 4, 5 songs the week after and I don't even remember, I just open them and I think, oh fuck, that was cool. I straight up get new ideas. I think like I'm walking in the room and then singing. I'm the worst singer in the whole world, by the way, but I'm singing ideas like, you know, like I hear stuff that fits to it, then I play it into it, switch again to the next song. I'm always getting inspired by my own stuff every time, and this made me super, super fast in getting layouts and ideas. and then close it again. And then I work a lot with my friend and buddy from GHEIST, Steve. He started DJing from, I don't know, when he was 12 probably, so way more than 20 years. And he's super good in arranging. He knows how long someone can take it in a club, a part, or how long someone needs this part. Because me as a pop producer, 3-minute tracks, it's like, next thing, otherwise it's getting boring. It's not. It's just like giving the people the chance to enjoy your idea of a color or vibe or whatever. This is, yeah. And so for me, this is, I heard it from someone else recently, but not in music context. It's a good way, I guess, to switch a lot. And if you feel you're super in it, might be, but the chances for me are like this, honestly. I think just fight yourself to not overdo stuff. Yeah. So for mixing, I probably just tell you what I have on the tracks, because it's a bit too bright here. So this is my kick drum. It's not studio speakers, so it's, I don't know if it's just doing it quick. So I start usually with EQing a bass drum. I have an EQ on it here already, but let's start from the top again. For me, it's always, we all want our tracks to be loud, of course. So we need to control certain frequencies that we don't need. For me, people say, I don't know, you cut a kick drum on at 20 hertz for clubs. I think living in Berlin for 15 years now, no speaker system in here actually can play something under 30 hertz. So I just started cutting my kicks pretty straight, 24 to, I don't know, 26 or maybe 30 hertz. And then when it comes to the kick, what do we want? There are tracks where you don't want the biggest kick drum. You should know that before. That's why going back to the rough mix, listening, what does the kick need to do for the track? But in general, we all probably like fat kicks. So you need a good belly, controlled mid-range, and a nice attack range. I don't like what I'm hearing at the moment. I don't like this clicky kick drums. It's going, maybe someone is also doing EDM stuff of you, or it's all pretty straight club stuff, like, okay. So if you do EDM stuff, I would probably focus more on high frequencies, but if I hear this, it's like, it's not a nice one. So when it comes to EQing in every instrument, I was, especially with this analytic equalizers, it's like, you go like this, oh, maybe not here now, bullshit, no one hears that, yeah? Just be confident, put it up 10 dB, I don't care. Here, nice one, bit higher. Here, this is annoying for me, I don't want this. So gain it down. The new, I don't know if you have the new FabFilter stuff, which is great, you can put them on dynamic EQs. I fucking love this. So you can, it's still there, the frequency, but it's a bit musically nice, controlled. So put this down, and then I love from analog mixing, what I recently did on a big console again, like nice analog frequencies. And it might be for everyone different, but for me it's like about 1 or 2K. So I try to find more attacks on this one. Always, for my trick is always think a bit lower than higher, because when we go, like I said, digital mixing is adding heights. So always think a bit under your frequencies that you want to push. So let's see what we can do here. Bit too low. When I put it down, there's no kick drum anymore. See what I mean? So I think this is a good frequency. Also, it's not bad sometimes to put another instrument to it, because when I'm doing like, what did I do? It's, okay, 2.6 dB, it's not a lot. But if you want to add more, you can reach some notes. Do you say notes or tones? Where it could be not in your scale of the song. So always be careful with that. So I killed a bit of the very high frequency stuff, added some frequencies on the attack range, and then the classical things I think you all know is like the 200 kind of where I say where kick drum starts puking, like there's just no tone, it's just unnecessary stuff. Kill that and add, if you want, some bass, nice. Can't hear it here, no subwoofer, but kind of like this. Another very important trick of mine is if you have a kick drum that is too long. We probably also all know that. Also after compression, there are always low frequencies that are too constant. And I did it now for 2 years and no one ever complained. Sweep them in a very rare, narrow Q is it called probably. You can sweep them here. Don't know if you can't hear. You hear stuff. This stuff. If you hear that in your studio, try to find these frequencies, and then don't be afraid. Just kill them, and your kick drum will be. See how short it is now? And there's no subwoofers, it's probably still enough, but this is a super good trick to get them shorter, because with, I don't know, transient designers or all that stuff, you can't make a kick shorter. Either you cut it or you notch frequencies in the very low basses out. Okay, so this is first steps to a kick drum. Is anyone of you using UAD stuff? Universal Audio Plug? You? There are a lot of products now out there, and it's getting more and more. What I like, because I think they realized there's a lot of money to make besides analog gear, and they've really developed very, very good stuff recently. I'm still a big fan of UAD plugins, because they do something for me that comes appears a bit like a transformer. How to say this in English? Sorry. If you go into analog outboard stuff, they have transformers. Converters, but not in a not an interface. It's like if you go through a compression, they have an input transform. It's transformers called, and they also change the sound a bit in a way, what makes them for me usually a bit softer, and that's what I hate about digital stuff. Also, if you use digital software synths, sometimes they are just too high and too harsh. I want them like if you play on an analog synth, it's like warm and fat. So these transformer things, if you run it through outboard, they make something very in a good way, way much better for me. And this is also what I get a bit from Universal Audio plugins, because they have built-in transformers. What I'm using a lot on a kick drum, it's hard to hear here probably, but there's like Neve emulations or SSL emulations. As you can see, I'm not even using an EQ on it. I just put it on the channel, it changes the sound. Let's try if we can hear it. I'm not sure on the speakers, but maybe. Okay, ein bisschen, ja, ist okay. Can you hear this? It's so crazy because the frequencies are so stable without. It's so digital, and if I put it on, let's say this is for you. Hear the high range. It feels like it's doing a bit like this to the high frequencies. Let's listen again. Can you hear that a little bit? No one is, I can't see anyone laughing because you're wearing masks. Okay, this is like a transformer converting kind of plug-in option to get a bit more the analog sound into it. So enough to the kick drum. Let's go to a snare drum. What to do with the snare drum? In this case, if I would be just the mixing engineer, I would say, I don't know. So you can start EQing on the snare drum. Let's see. This is what I do if I don't know what to do. And then always be honest again with yourself. If there's nothing to do, then don't do anything. It's not always, then that doesn't have to be a compression or EQing on every fucking channel. So what we always can do, in this case, do we need frequencies down here? Not really. Under 100 hertz, no. Leave it. Okay, we cut it so we get more space and maybe more opportunity again for being in a decent way loud at the end. Let's sweep it down. So just that's how I started. Just put it up and see what happens. Interesting. Yeah, why not? Do we need a big belly? Getting ugly here. Maybe I turn it out a little bit. Then I heard another frequency that was hurting me. There are a lot of difficult frequencies in between 3 and 5K, I would say, in general. Always focus 1 to 2 bit analog or attack sounding stuff. 3 to 5K is super tricky. Sometimes you really need it, but let's listen what happens here. These are it starts hurting these stuff, so I always out. We don't need this. Feel way more comfortable, and then maybe also again like what I try to emulate with analog sounding stuff. Let's see if we have a nice attack somewhere here. Starts hurting again. So if there's no good frequency, maybe a bit here, you can hear it. But look at this, doesn't need to have a lot of things to it. So leave the snare drum, and also in mixing, for me, it's again about speed. So don't work on a kick drum for 30 minutes, your ears are dead already. Always go fast, and we'll tell you later about it, or maybe I just put it in between. I have mixing templates. You heard about this? Like prepared mixing arrangements for a certain kind of music. So I'm doing pop music, it's a completely different template than I'm using for club music. I show you later. I have, or maybe let's go to that quickly now. Can you see? Are you using Logic or any DAW Pro Tools or? Maybe, but I think maybe I can turn this monitor a little bit. Is it okay for you? So cables. I'm using like 30 buses. In club music, maybe I just need 15 or even less, or maybe just 4. I don't know, but in all, so sometimes I'm working also with other people, and we came up with a system that is everyone is using this, and that makes it so great, because if I'm opening an arrangement of a friend of mine, I don't even have to think. I know what is coming out. So as I'm coming from hip hop and pop music, there are always vocals. Bus 1 and 2 is vocals, lead vocals, backing vocals. But then my drum kit is separate in one drum bass. Then I have a separate kick bass, because if you have a layered kick drum or whatever, or someone else, because I'm working for other people also, I have a kick bass, I have a snare bass, I have a hi-hat bass, and I have a percussion bass. They all go to my drum bass. So I can solo them straight, and also I don't always have to switch from a mixing kind of a window to a range window. I'm just in my mixing window and I can solo the kick drum because I know on which channel the kick drum is. It's not on tracks. It takes a bit more power for the computer, but makes you way faster and also, again, barely like, okay, kick high, blah, 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 snare, 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 you're super, super fast. Then the drum bass. After this, there's a bass bass. They all go again to another bass because I want the bass and the kick sit together. I'll show you in a second with some compression and also what I told you before, like making drum and bass groove in a way, being straight, being steady, being laid back, whatever. From this bass, there is another bass where all my synths going into. So I have a summing bass, and then the mix is actually done. But I would recommend to you, if you always start with if you go to your mixes of mixing for other people, if you start from zero and you always have to create new channels, load in our big list of plugins, load in a EQ, brr, 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 takes 30 seconds. 30 seconds that you lose in concentration and reacting fast in music. And I think also back in the days, some mixes were just genius because the people had hands on a console. This is the thing I tried to come up in my mixing environment, to be fast like on an analog console. So okay, a bit more kick drum, bit more this, bit more there. If you always have to switch windows and stuff, please do not do it. So what do you need on a channel or track in general? I would say it's always good to have a decent compressor on it. It's always good to have a good EQ on it. And it's always super, super important for me, because this is also what makes the mixes being a good mix or not, have some prepared rooms. So prepare your sends, like have a reverb there, have a room there, because also creating sand tracks, it always takes time. And if you think now room, you just put it on your sand because it's there already. It's way more productive, I would say. Okay, so this is a bit to my general environment. You can ask a lot of questions later and also in between as you feel like. So we're having kick, snare. I didn't have the feeling to do a lot here. Maybe just quickly, I solo it so you can see it. Drum, bass, can you see the yellow one here? So this, I can see it also here. This is a kick. This is it's hi-hats. This is snare drums, and this is percussions. And all of that, they go into this drum bass. And let's quickly see what I have on the drum bass. It's from Slate Digital. You can get it. You don't have to necessarily get it. It's also, for me, kind of a bit emulation to sounding a bit more analog. There's a very, very easy compression on it. So this is what I said before. It's like leveling your stuff. If you have your arrangements, if you have your templates, you just start like, I use then my kick drum into this compression in this red one. It goes to 3 dB compression, and then I know on the summing bass it will be perfect for me. What else do I have on here? It's again UAD, what also makes it a bit less heights for me and a bit minimal compression on the drum bass. Where's the drums? Give me a second.
Okay, I'm gonna be the annoying one asking.
No, I love this. Yeah.
Would you grab the microphone? Is that fine for you?
Yeah.
Do I talk to the host or without?
It's fine.
So I just wanted, because I usually, when I do the basses, I put the low end together. So I do the kick and the bass together and in one bass, and then the drums in another. But you do the kick then in the drum bass.
It's it really depends on. So usually I start with the kick and the rest of the drums into a drum bass. Then, like I said, there is another bus for drums and bass in my mixing strategy. What you need to know, if you put a drum bus compression to it and then another compression on bass and drum bus, you might lose low end. You can add it at the end, but sometimes if I did hip-hop mixing, it does not work. In club, it works for me, but in hip-hop, the kicks need to be more free. So they don't want compression, and as we know, most of the producers nowadays, they load their samples from Splice. It's fully compressed kick drums already, so if you compress them again, you lose stuff. But in electronic music, I would say it's good to have them all together and decide about a groove. I'll show you in a second. But if you start like I'm doing this and you feel like the kick drum is getting too much stuff on it, then just root it out of the bus. That's what always be flexible. Trust your ears. Don't trust what you can see here. That's the main thing. So it's these thoughts like, can I do this? Or maybe it might be wrong. Bullshit. There is no wrong. Just do it, listen to it, and if there's a problem, stop the playback. Don't always like and listen to this. Stop it and then think, how can I solve the problem? And so often it's way easier than you think. The answer is right here, but you don't think because you keep fooling your brain with constantly music. Take your breaks. So this is kind of the drum thing. I have a loop to that now, which makes it, to be honest, I'm pretty sure I found it on Splice. Back in the days, I thought like everything you're using should be programmed by yourself. But if you want like 90s kind of stuff looping, bullshit, you can't do it. They were created back in the days. Use them, but again, think first, what kind of groove do I want? Then load a loop from Splice, and then cut it and make it fit to your track. On this loop, I know, but I had to throw it out because it's not on this little laptop here. I added a lot of distortion, like destroying distortion, so I ended up with a hi-hat loop like this. Now we hear all the drum. Maybe it's a bounce mistake. Anyway, so we have kick, snare, and the hi-hats. So drum is, for this song, pretty much done, besides some little whatever important sounds I told you. So let's go to the bass. Like I said, it's not easy to work with the bass for me. Bass is a very, very tricky instrument in all kinds of music. I just unmute all that stuff here quickly and then go through it. So when it comes to bass, there for me, honestly, it's a lot about controlling, making resonating stuff, and also a good kind of distortion, because so many people nowadays, we all know, listen on little speakers. So if you come with studio basses, they always might be too low in general. So let's listen to what we have. Easy bass, because I have high frequencies in it already.Maybe we can see it here in the frequency. No, yeah, you can see like it goes naturally already to 1K, which I know basses, they just go to not even 200, then you have a problem. Okay, but in general, let's see. I use first of all a bit of compression to it, using waves. Fairchild here, I love Fairchild compressors. It's one of my favorite compressors. I use a lot of the Soundtoy plugins. I think they are just really, really great. It's Distortion. It's these letters down there. There are different kind of distortions. I don't know all of them. I'm very sure that the N is for Neve, and the T is probably for a tube, I guess. Rest I don't really know. But you can hear what I'm doing. So it's adding, it's adding high frequencies. Do you all know what distortion is actually doing in music, in mixing? It's adding always 1 octave higher. So if you distort, the octave higher is resonating more. It's like if you play on a piano a chord, that's why a piano sounds so nice. The higher octaves are also vibrating. So there's a little distortion to it. Another saturation is UAD again, I'm sorry. This is a preset, I guess. It's called transform. What I said, it's like I use as many transformers as possible to make the sound very soft and nice. And here, what I said about vibration, it's also UAD tool, but you can use any other sub-oscillating, what is it, not an EQ, but sub-oscillator. So let's see what it does. I'm adding like a maximum of gain and sweeping down frequencies. So check out what happens. Unfortunately nothing, because we don't have a low end here. But I show you in a different, give me a second. Let's use R bass quickly. You might have this one. So let's say we're starting from a very high frequency from bass, what it can take. Something is coming up here, you hear that? Something, but it was just on one tone. Be careful with that. If you push a bass in where it just is present in one tone, it can also fuck up your mix. Better go for constant frequencies that the bass has. It was here. It was higher. Hard to hear. I just can hear this. This is actually too high, but it's. Cost of the that we don't have a subwoofer, but doesn't matter. You got what I'm. Yes, please.
Just quick question. Do you usually work with just one bass, or you divide like sub and upper harmonies?
That's what I'm doing. In the first step, I have a little controlled compression, bit excitement in way of distortion to make it present. Then now I'm searching for the very low end to make it really glue and fulfill the room. Then this bass track goes to the bass again. So at the end I'm just using my basses to mix the track. I'm going to the bass, I'm using here a max bass that is adding the higher frequencies. Maybe we can hear this. I don't know, let's check. So this is the original bass. It's cool that we can switch around. So this is what I'm adding. Kind of, this is the original bass. It's really hard to hear, but you see what I mean. Like care for the lower, care for very important the mid range of a bass, and then it's for me. I'm working. You can see a lot on a bass. It's another like a transformer kind of thing. That's not. I'm not using it as a transformer, more as another kind of distortion to make it even more present. And then we added so much on a very low end and mid range. I want to control it again. This is why I'm using 4 dB. Not much, but another compression. And then actually my bass is solid. What I love in general You might have it you can get it from any kind of companies nowadays. I love this equalizer because it's, for me, what makes mixes or music in general a bit more sexy to me is like the thoughts of filtering, not of EQing. EQing for me is technically and like controlling stuff, but sometimes you want to add some nasty frequencies, sexy frequencies. And these things are not like these typical normal equalizers where you can see everything. You don't care here if you adding a 6 or a 10 dB to a frequency, and if on this other EQs you will think like, is this possible? It's maybe too much. Bullshit. So let's just sweep a few frequencies from the bass. Now we hear it, you know, and this is 12 dB. It's 6 dB up is double loud as before. So this is twice as much as we could hear on 1K frequency. So I think this in general for smaller speakers, I would love this frequency. 1K is always nice on the APIs. Also, what I added a little bit, what we always forget on basses, which is super nice frequency, is 500. Because this is a more growling, like nasty, but very powerful frequency. If you listen to the 500 in clubs, it's like pressuring you. Without the 500, again, it's like just a boring sub bass. So, but I couldn't. Nice one. I could not add the 500 probably on this bass if I didn't add the distortion before. So I prepared in a few steps that I have frequencies there at all, because maybe there were no frequencies. So we can put the 500, can also check the 200. That don't really get me at the moment, but so this is another tool to EQ bass. And special trick we just found out recently, if you put up the 16K full, it might take some power into your compressions, but sure, we can't hear it here, but in general you have to try it. It opens up kind of breathing on the bass. You don't hear it because there are no frequencies, but something it does to the mix that it feels more open. So this is what I'm doing a lot. It's just a nice trick, maybe work around. I think I can hear it here also. It's crazy. It's just getting louder, more present. I don't know, even though there's no frequencies. So next step, super important for me. Robin, setzt du dich bitte wieder? So maybe we have now a bit of a fight in between kick and snare drum, and this is a super important move for me. It's kind of pre-mixed here already, but what I'm doing is, do you using the fab filter or general multiband compression? So I have a band down here. I'm back again, and there is a function where you can mute the whole band, and then I'm sweeping it down again. So I play the drum and bass, and put it on, and then I'm checking, because this one is muted, I listen straight where the kick drum starts breathing again, because if the bass is on the same frequencies, it's like just killing each other. Maybe here I can hear something. So there will be a push on 100 Hertz, could definitely be on one of my kick drums. So I'm side chaining this one band. You know what means input side chaining? So I have the kick drum here. There's my kick drum bus coming in, and this kick drum bus is compressing with the look ahead. So the compression knows already when kick drum is coming before it comes. and with a very fast attack. So there is a kick drum attack, kills the bass down, and then I check with the release how long the kick drum wants to be there. And if you just put it on a band, and we added before in the higher frequencies these nice bass frequencies, the bass will stay there, but the kick always has some nice space to develop.
If you do that, so is that how you sidechain generally? Is there different tools, or maybe just sidechaining the sub, or just sidechaining the highest?
I think this makes it is a more creative way of sidechaining. But if you want sidechaining as a hearable effect, I would put it in all frequencies. Then I would use in general a compression works with every compression. But it's always, again, be honest about the attack and release time. Because if you use effect-wise sidechaining, I think straight attack would be too fast. So you want to hear a slap and then go down and up before the next slap comes. So the sidechaining should be in between the hits. And here it's straight up with this look ahead that if the kick hits, the bass is gone for, I don't know, let's see. It's just like you can hardly see it, but it's like kick and it starts breathing so nice. You know, it's always like, again, in kind of a nice wave. So this is super important. With this one, you get your kicks big without over leveling them, because sometimes a lot of people that are not good in mixing, they have too loud kick drums. No one needs too loud kick drums, also not in club context. And here you get a lot of space. The next little thing for this one, and then we're done with drum and bass, is also always check the phases. You all have your like utility phasing tools. Always switch the phases on bass and once on a kick drum, because it's weird what can happen. Sometimes you hear nothing. Sometimes you just realize that we're killing each other because they have too many same frequencies, and you have to change the phases to them. So this is with these tools you can definitely get your drum and bass very, very tight, and everyone has their own spaces. Last little step for drum and bass is now the bus I told you, where kick and there we are. So it's my getting together kick and bass bus, or in this case it's the whole drum and bass. I really like the SSL bus compression for that, because I think it's used on many mixing buses in general, and I really know the times of the release and attacks. And let's see what happens. Maybe I turn the computer again. So what I do also in this kind of compression, this is not a functional compression. This is a groove making compression, and this is super important for me. So full mix up, and then put the threshold really down, like really kill it. Give me a second. So now we hear compression a lot. And now let's play a bit with the times. So here's a very slow attack now and a very fast release. Now we go into fast release and slower attacks. So what happens here for me? What I can hear, and I always decided in my life, I think this is sexy. You can have a kick like this, or you can have a kick like this. And like this, like we did it with a linear back in the days, the floop, you know. I love punches that are not straight. This is always for me German Schlager or hard, aggressive EDM or whatever. I love this floppy, like bloop kicks. They're more sexy. This means they are just a bit too late. So the compression attack and release time makes that it's just going back and gets another hit, and then it's coming like late drum attacks in general. Also important, where you can get late drum attacks, what I also didn't know, is back in the days, tapes. Tapes are slowing down your transients. You know it already. I didn't know. So we're talking about the transient, there's a hit, and then the wave is going down like this. If you're going into tape machines, they make this. So they kill your first transient, so also kick drums or snare drums, if you want them softer. Just talking about being softer today, it's a weekend. I think this is important to know how to make it harder and how to make it softer. It's very, very important colors that we can use. So this is, let's say, okay, we like this now, because all the drums are a bit more slapping, then go down to a decent compression, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 dB, and then check the mix again. No, it's more, I like it. It's like a bit more stable and has a little different punching behavior. So, we still got some time, right? Yeah, cool. Okay, perfect. So this is for me one of the main things in a mix. If you have this basic, this fundament stable, you hardly can't mess it up anymore, honestly. But this is not the music, it's just the bass, we're building the house on it. So for me, this one should not take you longer in general. If you fit in it, what you're doing, it should not take longer than 20 minutes, half an hour. After this, I would really recommend take a little break. You have drum and bass, have another coffee, tea, cigarette, whatever you feel like, and reset your ears a little bit. Then go in and don't double check again what you did. You did it because you think this is the right way. Leave it, go to the next instrument. In this case would be a pad here. See? So having a decent pad here. Also, again, what do we want from the pad? Maybe, hopefully, we like the coloring of the pad, like the emotion-wise, what it's doing. Then I would always use, especially because I know this was a software synth, I would use always, again, distortion. If you might have this sound toys thing, you can also, there is a tone button in the middle where you can say on which frequencies you want more of the distortion. So mix full up, distortion, C, higher, bit lower. I like it more in the high range because we have so much bass stuff already going on, so less distortion. We have a bit of excitement on the pad, nice, that's it. If we want, again, like double check quickly EQing, put low cut if you want, but usually also on pads to 100 or 80 at least. Let's do it, sweep it down. Here's a nice belly. I would use definitely this one. See if we want some high stuff, but also have always the song arrangement in mind because they might open up the filters later on the synths and then you have way too many heights. So, but in general, I have to move on a bit quicker. What I love on these EQs, now we have a very stable drum and bass fundament on the track, but we have so many more spaces to fill. With these things, you can do EQing on mids and sides, and on the new ones also just left or right. I love this because if you're using, you might use them, I do too sometimes, but these stereo spreading tools, they cost a lot of phasing, and at the end, if you put it on mono or you have a shitty club speakers, you lose your synths. So this is a way better way for me to EQ synths. So I like this belly frequency here. Let's put this one on stereo placement, let's say left, yeah? Then I mute it again, check another frequency right there. maybe even a bit lower, why not? 200, and then put this on right. So turn on the other one again. So now we have like in a low mid-range, we have a stereo image on a synth. I love this because then it's like stable bass heights, and then we have the sides filled with very, very nice mid-ranges. There's another tool I want to show you, one of my main tools I'm using. Everyone loves it. I don't know if everyone knows it. It's from Roland, the old Dimension D. Please don't ask me what it's doing. It's like also like a kind of a chorus and also a bit of a saturation on the sides. I would hardly recommend to get this from some company. This is UAD again. And I also saw the Behringer things from Thomann or whatever, they rebuilt it for €200. So maybe you can also have it as outboard. But I'm using it on every mix, every direction, on all the synth pads. Doing super nice stuff. I try, if you can hear this one. So just pad again. So without, now put it to it. Yeah, it also makes it louder, but if you listen in a studio, you think like, what the fuck? I love it. It's just, it's perfect. So this synth work, then the track is basically there. Now it's like, where do we want to have this song be played actually? Yeah, because it feels very, very unnatural if you don't using any rooms, especially on a drum. It's crazy. So I have at least one room that I decide. Sometimes I put it just on the master bus and think what could fit to the song. And then I place, also bass is in this room, all the synths are in the room. I don't show it now because I'm sure you can't hear it because it's not about really, shouldn't be very hearable. This is for me an effect to the whole song that's very important that you just should hear if you mute this one. If you mute it, it should feel unnatural because we all, like I'm talking here, we all used to reflections in a room. And if you just go straight out with programmed stuff and there is no reflection, no rooms in it, it feels very unnatural and you always will have the feeling my mix sounds shit. Rooms are fucking important. So last step, yes please. It depends. Usually I'm having 2 rooms, a very short one that's really just about reflection. And then a bit longer one that maybe gives me an idea of the room the music will be played. So sometimes I just close my eyes and switch through presets. I think rooms, we have to treat them, but not in, I don't put like 1 second here and there, but bullshit. Close the eyes, presets, and then imagine like, this is the club I want this song to be played in. And then after this, you have to be a bit careful when the rooms are longer. You might EQ them because especially in bass frequencies, rooms are not always adding good stuff. Sometimes it's always killing nice long bass frequencies.
I'm curious to know how you put the bass in the room that you do.
To put what in the room?
How do you put the apply the reverb to your bass? Because you said you're careful.
Okay. Let's see. It's sometimes it's hard to show here because the speakers are not really responding on what we're doing. But let's see. So I have a room here. I don't have a room here. Let me load up a room. So that you know that there are impulse response. It's not working because the maximum load is there already. Let's see if I can quickly find another room. Maybe a Logic also. Gotta guess this one is okay. Load up small spaces rooms. 1 second. No drum. 0.6 seconds. Okay, let's see what it does. Nothing so far. So here's the drums coming. It's not my kind of room, but just to make a quick example. And let's see what happens with the bass here. It's give me a second. It's also it's a more high bass, but let's listen again in the whole mix. What it does, it's placing the bass in a nice way. I always thought the basses need to stay up front, but in the club context, not for me. The kick drums has to be punching straight in your face, but the bass, if you give the bass a little bit more breathing space, you can actually put it louder without being annoying or overloading in frequencies. So I put it on bass now. I don't hear anything here, but try it in the studio. Short rooms, put your drums into it, put a bass into it, and usually I have more bass signal in the rooms than in the drums.
And you don't, how do you usually EQ that?
The room?
Yeah,
Yes.
bass?
Bass? Okay, you came a bit too late, but no, easy. We can have a chat after what we're done here. It's a tricky one. It takes half an hour. Ask them. They're like dying already. Yeah, so rooms, we have all the signals straight. Last step, and another one of my little secrets.
Sorry, just to be clear, not EQing the bass, EQing the reverb on the bass. Not necessarily EQing.
Always EQing the reverbs.
I meant EQing the reverb, like EQing the room.
Yeah, I do EQing on the room, and also, as you know me now already, maybe I also distort rooms, because I always start from a classical point of engineering the thoughts, and back in the days you recorded the rooms. What did engineers do with the rooms? Did they just put it on a console? Bullshit. There was low cuts on it, there was EQing on it, and sometimes over compression, which ended up in a kind of distortion. In electronic music, I would not overtreat the rooms. In pop music and rock music for sure, but in electronic music, definitely cut out the bass frequencies. And also for me, a lot, I don't like if hi-hats getting like, this is also in the rooms. Cut the heights, and then maybe, like I showed you, always EQ, be honest with yourself, put it up, sweep it through, and if there are nasty frequencies, just put them out. And after this, I would, on rooms, sometimes I use stereo spreading stuff to have them a bit more out of the main parts. If you listen on studio speakers in club, it's probably unnecessary, but it feels better for me. So last step here is this one last bus where everything comes together. It's not my main output, because I maybe sometimes want to adjust before the output something, but the last main bus, there are two more tools. It's from Sony Oxford. It's the Inflator, maybe you heard about it. I fucking love this one, because what people told me, I never double checked it, but it makes sense for me. This is like an emulation of a SSL console output. What does it do? It adds again harmonic distortions, and sometimes if your mix is sounding a bit not exciting enough, you don't have to put more EQs on it usually, just use a bit of a saturation, just saturation and a bit of a harmonic distortion. There's one button here, split band. Try, if you have it or demo it, try what it does, because sometimes if it's on or off, sometimes it's more punchy, the sound, but sometimes it's also it's too squeezed, and if you put it, it's getting better in a stereo image again. And yeah, this is probably the last step on the before output bus. Output bus, I have some more parallel compression if it's necessary, but it's all prepared here. And then I have at the very end final EQ. This is from a Plugin Alliance, where I can adjust a bit more. It's a very clinical EQ, what to say, like it's very tight EQ, very linear. And before you using this one, take another half an hour break, have lunch or whatever, because if you're working with 1.5 dB up on certain frequencies, you really need to have fresh ears. You can't, after 4 hours mixing, you won't hear what you're doing here, so you can just mess it up. If you don't hear anything anymore on this day, quit the session, go back to production, go back to the studio next morning with fresh ears. And then that's what I usually do. I never send out a mix that I start on a day. I never send it out the same day. It's always, my day always starts with the tuning of a mix the day before. Then I send it out in the morning. After that, I start a new mix from zero. And after that, I start production. That's always, because I think mixing in the afternoon or evening is bullshit. Also, don't drink, do nothing else. Your ears are so sensitive. If I have a sip of a beer while I'm mixing, my ears are fucked. That's with me. Some people say it different, but I think this is a very intense job for your ears and for your brain. Just know this. Don't fool around. It's like, I don't know, it's harder than driving car for 10 hours. And after this, we all know you get out of the car and you realize how done you are. And you think you're just sitting. No, it's always your brain. It's always on it, analytics, this, yeah. Cool, that would be so the quick impression of what I tried to give you. If there are any more questions? Yeah? I can't, I'm using Sense.
You're using Sense, right?
I'm using Sense in mixing. In production, I sometimes put it on the channels because it does something else. Also, sometimes you put rooms or stuff to your signal, to your synth, and after this compression. So there are different ways you have to try it out, but if it just comes to straight mixing, I'm sending.
In this one, did you send it directly to the bus where the drum and the bass are together?
The output of the room.
Yeah, did you send out to the...
I don't send groups.
You didn't send it?
No, I send separately kick drum, hi-hat, snare drum, this, bass.
Because I was wondering, did you treat like sub-frequencies with the room also?
No. Room is more in the mid-range. There are no clear frequencies in a sub-range in context with the room, so I would avoid them and just cut them.
If you have a distorted bass line, like in this track, sometimes the sub can get a bit messy. So would you recommend trying to fix that from the main bass instrument with plugins, or using just a separate instrument with just a sub bass? And if doing that, where to find the cutoff frequency and make sure it's not phasing?
You mean in general, you have, the question is bass is over subby or messy in the sub ranges, and then either you cut it and separate it. So this is also with the Fab Filter plugins that you can have so hard ankles, not just whatever, Winkel. The cues, you can make the cues so hard that I sometimes, when there was a really big problem, I separate a bass in 2 tracks. And I just do the hard cuts, so I just had the sub stuff and another one that I just had like over 60 hertz or over 80 hertz. That works. It might also work what I showed you on the kick drums, that you really notch out frequencies in the bass. But in general, if a bass, that's why I said before, I think you can't over-compress a bass, to be honest. On my bass tracks are sometimes 3 different compressors, because the compressor always takes, if you don't sidechain it or filter it, it takes the most powerful frequency, and the most powerful frequency is the lower frequencies, not the higher ones. So a compression will always first react on low frequencies. So if you compress a bit, your low end gets tighter, compress again, gets tighter, until you have like a more balanced frequency range on basses. Just compress the fuck out of it, that's it, honestly. Or also with the multi-channels. If you really don't want to touch the high stuff on a bass because it might have attacks and still a messy low end, then use a multiband and just compress the lows. Yeah. Cool. You have so many more questions. All good. We can have a chat in down there in a second. Cool. Thank you.